There are stories in Formula One that were never officially recorded, stories that don't appear in books, documentaries, or special interviews, stories that survived only in the whispers of tired mechanics, in the silent looks of engineers who saw more than they should have, and in the cold corridors of Italian factories where the pressure was so great it seemed to bend steel itself. This is one of those stories, the story of Ferrari in the 90s, a decade where dream and chaos shared the same roof, where glory seemed far too close, and at the same time, unreachable. Before we begin, let me warn you, what you're about to hear is not just a narrative, it is a direct plunge into the turbulent heart of the most beloved and most pressured team in the history of motorsport. And there is one detail you need to know before we continue. What almost destroyed Ferrari at that time did not come from rivals on the track. It came from within. And what if I told you that behind the shine of Ferrari red, there were nights when engineers slept on the floor and drivers begged to abandon the car? Get ready, because this is going to get much more intense. The 90s began with the team carrying the weight of a shadow, the shadow of Enzo Ferrari, the commander, the patriarch, the man whose presence imposed silence simply by existing. He was gone, and with his absence came chaos. Everyone wanted to take control. Directors, departments, chief engineers, consultants, the engine division itself, each one trying to pull the prancing horse in a different direction. And when a team divides, it bleeds. The factory in Maranello lived in constant war, not war with other teams, internal war. Meetings that should have lasted half an hour turned into 3 hours of shouting, accusations, slamming doors. The Italian press pressured, demanded explanations, called drivers failures and engineers incompetent. And inside the garage, the atmosphere was so heavy that even the sound of pneumatic guns seemed more aggressive. But none of that compared to what was about to explode when two drivers, as different as fire and gasoline, were put to share the same team. The first of them was a warrior, strong, solid, experienced, a driver who carried on his shoulders the responsibility of keeping Ferrari alive amid the chaos. He knew the car wasn't good, he knew management was lost, and he knew that of all the teams on the grid, Ferrari was the only one where mistakes were not allowed. Every failure was a headline, every retirement, a national scandal. The other driver was the opposite, young, fast, impulsive, with that innocent arrogance of someone who believes talent alone is enough to save the world. And maybe it was exactly that recklessness Ferrari needed, but at the same time, it was the kind of spark that could set the entire team on fire.
And what if I told you that these two came so close to getting into a fistfight inside the garage that the mechanics themselves had to intervene? The season went on like a recurring nightmare. The car was temperamental, unpredictable, almost cruel. Every race brought a different drama. Radio conversations were marked by frustration, by muffled screams, by silences far too long to ignore. There were days when the drivers stepped out of the cockpit sweating cold, not because of the race, but because of the fear that something inside that car would simply give up. And meanwhile, inside the factory, the engineers fought against the clock, against expectations, against reality itself. Ferrari had money, it had tradition, it had power, but it didn't have direction. And when direction is missing, chaos finds its place. But what really triggered the crisis wasn't a retirement, wasn't an accident, wasn't a mechanical failure. It was something much more human and much more dangerous. It all started in a race far too hot to be comfortable. The atmosphere was suffocated, the pressure unbearable. The young driver was faster that weekend, that was clear. But the veteran was not willing to give up his position within the team. He had history, prestige, voice. Divided, Ferrari did what a team in crisis always does. It tried to please both. And when you try to please two rival drivers, you lose both. At the start, everything seemed fine. But as the laps went by, the young driver began to pressure the veteran, first with approaches, then with risky dives, then with harsh radio messages, until finally he attempted an impossible overtake, and the veteran closed the door. The contact was light, almost imperceptible. But inside Ferrari, that impact echoed like a nuclear bomb. The young driver spun, the veteran damaged the car, and the entire team collapsed. But what happened next never leaked to the press. Until now. When the cars returned to the garage, the silence was so absolute it felt impossible to breathe. The veteran climbed out of the cockpit without looking at anyone. The young driver, fueled by adrenaline, threw his glove on the ground and marched toward the team principal. What followed was an argument so explosive, so violent, so loaded with years of frustration, that the mechanics stopped what they were doing. Some say the young driver shoved one of the engineers. Others swear the veteran charged at him and had to be held back. The truth, no one knows, but everyone agrees on one thing. That night marked the breaking point. After that day, nothing was the same. Ferrari had to choose a side, had to restructure, rebuild, rise from the ashes, and that rebirth came at a cost. It cost careers, it cost friendships, it cost the team's peace. But everything changed when a name appeared on the horizon. A name that would not only save Ferrari, but rewrite the team's history forever.
And if you want to know who that man was and how he turned chaos into legend, that is a story for another chapter of our F1 Exposed series.